Well, first of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that.
You all don't remember the Georgia Southern game, do you?
You know, I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
Like rat poison. All right, so
It's Division One football. It ain't intramurals.
All right, welcome back to the Hoppy Huddle podcast. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we are back. We are live. We are very excited to present to you the final preview episode of the conferences. This is the SEC Part 2. We will then have our predictions episode next week and Week 0 preview. Can you believe it? It's almost here. College football.
We've been waiting forever. Oh, my goodness. Oh, it's a lot of golf, NBA, a lot of things we've had to watch, World Cup. Can you please, college football, thank you for returning.
Exactly. I feel the same way. Not anything crazy in the news department, at least from what I've checked. Have you seen anything?
Just starting quarterbacks being named. Other than that, and the whole, hey, you get cut by the Browns today, but you can sign with LSU tomorrow. I don't even want to get into
They're not
that.
the only ones that are doing that. There's other teams that are trying. Texas Tech.
I don't even want to deal
one,
with it. I want to pretend it doesn't exist. Move
let's
on.
just get to ball. Let's get to some ball. We can see what's going on. All right. SEC preview, part 2. We are talking Texas, Alabama, and more. And I think we've been putting off the big dog for long enough. I think it is time to address the Longhorn in the room, and that is University of Texas. I will not be hooking them. I cannot do that. But we can talk about the University of Texas football team. Head coach Steve Sarkisian brings his most talented roster yet. I think we can agree. With Arch Manning is back. They've got insane receivers. Decent offensive line with some questions maybe. Elite defense across the board. What do you see as being like the key things that are going to determine the season for Texas Longhorns?
Well, I mean, if you look at every team in the country, there's almost none that can stack up with his team. Basically, when you look at all the position groups, I mean, across the board, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receivers, defensively, I mean, you've got Simmons back, Manning's back. We all know Arch Manning. There's really, and then they go out and sign Can Coleman. I mean, the freak from Auburn, who's an amazing wide receiver. And I say that freak in the nicest, glowing terms and in the best way possible. There is no reason this isn't one. They are one of the most talented teams in the country. What we don't, if there's a weakness anywhere, any position groups, I still think it's a little, maybe the offensive line, perhaps.
It's more of a question mark than a weakness.
It's not a weakness, a question mark. But I think the bigger weakness for this team is, can they be consistent week to week? That's what the problem was last year.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's just they love the Austin nightlife. I don't know what it is.
Now we're getting some talk radio. These boys are out there partying. They're not focused. They're not locked in.
I sound like a Friday Night Lights episode, on the radio, sports talk radio. I don't know. I mean, there's no reason this team shouldn't be the favorite, and they are one of the favorites for the national title.
I think they are definitely one of the favorites for the national title. I think I'm with you on the offensive line. It was definitely a weakness last year. They seem to have, people seem a little more confident about the O-line going into this year. They have a decently tough schedule. They play a lot of tough teams in the SEC, and of course they have that Ohio State game out of conference. My thing with Texas is not, I don't have any unbelief in any of the individual players on Texas. I just don't believe in Sark, in his ability to be elite when the competition is elite, right? He is a good football coach. He beats the teams he's supposed to beat. He great, creator of individual plays. You get to some parts of the games and you just kind of like scratch your head. Like, they have all this talent, and then they're just they're running these rinky-dink screen passes in the fourth quarter when you're down 7, right? When you need to be pushing the ball vertically, and that's always kind of been a question with him is, can he be elite against the elite competition? And it's not that I don't think they can. It's just I haven't seen it yet.
We've always had issues with them in the red zone. I mean, we've always the last few years that's been an issue. This year, they bring in Will Muschamp, the well-traveled Will Muschamp, as the defensive coordinator.
It's a good move. In my
I don't
opinion.
know if that's what's that.
I like that actually.
He's been better. I think that's probably an upgrade over Kwiatkowski, whatever the guy's name was.
Yeah.
Probably so, but every time you switch coordinators, you never know. Tons of talent, but you're right. It all falls on Sark. And so let me pose this question before we get to our kind of predictions for them. If this team goes 9-3 or 8-4, and I don't think they will, is Sark done there?
No, I think they just reload for next year. They've got too much momentum.
I don't know.
I think they would have to lose into like program control, lose the team for that to happen. They'd have to completely fall off a cliff, like James Franklin style, right?
I think an 8-4 season might do Sark in.
I don't know about that. I don't think they're anywhere close.
But I don't think they're going to be 8-4. I think there's too much talent on this team. I think the schedule is, while it's hard, the splits are all pretty favorable.
Yeah.
I mean, the road games are not unwinnable.
I have them going 10-2, which is maybe not the most bold or not the most ridiculous take, but maybe a little beyond other people. I have them losing that Ohio State game, and then I picked Ole Miss, but I think there's a scenario where they could lose. That second loss could be to Oklahoma or LSU. But I just picked Ole Miss because we'll get to them in a minute. But
I have them 11-1. I think they're going to just be better than most teams across the board, especially during the regular season.
Keep an eye on Red River because I think Oklahoma's defense could really knock up Texas' offense if their O-line isn't in tip-top shape. Because we said that's where our questions are, right? And if they're not playing 100%, that matchup could be a nightmare for them.
So here's the other thing, too. And, I mean, we really haven't talked about this, but there is a world where, I mean, I know Tennessee is not the best. I don't know that we think Tennessee is great this year. But let's say they lose the Ohio State game, which is very plausible. That's two great teams.
Yeah.
But let's say they go to Tennessee and Tennessee pulls an upset, which is
what if Faison Brandon is actually really good?
They're a 2-loss team going to that Oklahoma game. They're fighting for their life. And we're in the second weekend of October.
Yeah, they have a tricky schedule. So they don't play Alabama or Georgia, but they play everybody in that tier 2. And I think any one of them on the right Saturday could beat them.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they're going to go 11-1. I think they're going to win those kind of games. But there's also a scenario where this thing could get off the rails real quickly if they get an upset or two early. Again, you go lose those two. You lose a squeaker to Ohio State, then you get upset against Tennessee. You get to Red River. What happens if you lose to Oklahoma? You got 3 losses. You're 3-3, and you got the meat of your schedule left. This thing could go downhill quick.
Now that being said, I think there's an equally possible scenario where they just roll everybody because they have the talent.
That's very true. Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, 2024, when we were all looking at Ohio State and we're like, oh, this team's just going to roll everybody. And then they didn't. They ended up with 2 losses, right? And they were like, okay, maybe this team can't put it together. And then they got in the playoffs and they turned it on and they smoked everyone. And I think there's potential for that with Texas. They could be a 10-2 team in the playoff, and then it clicks and they win the Natty.
Yeah, absolutely. Very talented team.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to play this team.
Absolutely not. No one does. I think it is time to talk the Tide. Kalen DeBoer going into his third season at Alabama. Ryan Grubb is back from the NFL. He has returned to Alabama, his longtime offensive coordinator. Womack is still the DC. Glad that we put this episode for last because we now have the news that Keelan Russell has won the starting job at Alabama, which I see as a good sign. And it actually kind of helps validate my my prediction of Alabama, which is I think they're going to be really good this year. I think people are going to be like, well, yeah, Kalen DeBoer can really coach, and people are going to forget that Alabama still has a roster loaded with talent. And yeah, I think, I think I have Alabama right there, kind of at that level, towards the upper echelon of the conference. I think Ryan Coleman Williams, he's added Coleman to the last name. If he can kind of bring us back some of that magic from right when he started playing when he was 17, that'd be great. They've got talent on defense, and their secondary is very solid. And I think they're pretty well coached. But what are your thoughts on Alabama?
Well, Ryan Coleman was dropping so many passes. I guess he decided to add something and add his name.
Right.
So, to me, it starts. This team, first of all, I feel sorry for Austin Mack. I think Austin Mack's probably a good quarterback and probably very capable. But I get why. I mean, we're not going to those practices, but I understand the reasoning. Keelan gives them national championship potential here. I mean, this was a big time recruit, a big time player. This is a Jaden Daniels-esque type of player. This is the upside. I mean, if you're going to win and win big, this is the guy you're going to win with. So it makes sense. I don't know what that does to max eligibility. Who knows? Who knows with injuries? You never know what happens in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my issue with Alabama. First of all, they've not been able to run the ball consistently last year.
Yeah, that's been a problem.
4 starters are gone from last year's team. I think you lost some reserves as well. This is a rebuilt offensive line. That is my concern. I think that's probably why you need a more mobile running back as well.
It could be an improvement, though. If you're just saying they're struggling to run the ball, a rebuilt O-line could help.
Yeah, it could help because they were not very good last year. I think they've got to be better than last year. So I think, yeah. So again, maybe you're right. Maybe that is better. Defensively, I think they're always solid. I don't think there's any really let up here. I mean, they recruit well.
Xavier Brown, Bray Hubbard,
Pierre returns. I mean, there's tons of talent. This team is sneakily. We just kind of forgot about Alabama. All of a sudden, we talk about these other teams. The schedule starts off pretty easy. You then get a pretty meaty part of the schedule, the middle part of it, but you get the splits with Georgia and A&M are at home. You do have a road game at LSU, but they're used to playing at LSU. That's not going to scare them. I think when Keelan Russell, when that was announced Saturday, that immediately added an extra game, in my opinion, to what I was predicting. I had them at 10-2. I think this is a talented team. I think other people had this a little bit lower on the scale, but I think with Keelan, I think this is a good team, and I do think the schedule is pretty favorable. Again, at Tennessee is always difficult, at LSU, but those are normal schedules for them.
Yep.
Alabama's used most of those players that have been around have played there, and I don't think those are unwinnable games. The Georgia game's going to be tough, but I'm not much on A&M this year, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Give me Alabama. Give me 11-1 Alabama.
Whoa. Okay, you feel a little even stronger than I do. Okay.
I remember when Keelan Russell committed. I watched that dude is one of the 4 guys of every class where you see the highlights of on your Instagram feed and you're like, oh man, I am so high. My only concern was that if he didn't win the starting job, it means he might be a bust. I think he wins the starting job over DeBoer's, guy that he brought with him, the guy that DeBoer trusts. I think that shows huge potential. I also don't think the schedule is it could have been way worse. There are a lot worse SEC schedules out there.
Oh, yeah.
The only 2 games where I'm concerned are Tennessee and at LSU. I think they split those, and I think they beat Georgia, and I think they beat everybody else. DeBoer seems to have Kirby's number. I think that continues this year. And I think they split. They either lose at Tennessee and then they beat LSU, or they the reverse of that. So I am extremely high on the Tide. I think they are right up there for the conference title game, and then tiebreakers will determine it, because I have 3 11-1 teams in the SEC.
Okay.
And Bama is one of them.
Well, good. I could see 11-1. That one does not surprise me at all. So.
Yep. Next up, let's talk about the Rebels. Down in Oxford, Mississippi, head coach Pete Golding takes over a team bent on revenge. And they are going to get it in week 3 at home when LSU comes to town, in what's probably going to be the most watched game day of the entire year. It's gonna have insane ratings, let me tell you. LSU going back to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin will have crazy tweets, I'm sure. And I'm also very high on the Rebels this year. I think Pete Golding is the real deal. I think that's why Saban brought him into the fold when he was younger. He was still kind of an up-and-coming head coach. Trinidad Chambliss, I think, is probably a legit NFL guy. He's mobile enough. He makes great downfield decisions. He can run. He has actually really good pocket awareness, and he's like great at avoiding sacks. Even if he's not like running down the field all the time, like Lamar style, he's great at avoiding sacks. Kewan Lacey is maybe the best running back in all of college football. He's back. You got a good wide receiving core in Deuce Alexander. Some O-line pieces are also back. Kutas on the O-line. On defense, that's Golding's specialty. They do lose some guys on defense, but they're still strong on defensive line. The only question for me is really kind of the secondary is all right, but I think Trinidad Chambliss may be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. I like him better than Arch. I like him better than Stockton. And I think, like him better than Levitt and any of the other guys in the SEC, really, that are proven. So I think they win every game except Georgia. I think they lose to Georgia. Now, here's the thing. This could easily go downhill. I think there's a big swing possibility here if they don't beat LSU. If LSU goes into their house and beats them, I could see them dropping all the way to like 7 wins or 8 wins.
Yeah.
But I think if they beat LSU, I think they're off to the races, because Trinidad showed last year they beat Georgia in the playoff. It's not they could play at that level with those guys without Kiffin. And I think Golding showed that last year, and I think they're going to play a ton of those games this year, and I think they're ready to go.
Do you remember when you went to school and your teacher was out sick and you got a substitute teacher, and you got a substitute teacher that you really liked, and they just, they were for a day and they let you do what you want. It was like, oh, this is cool. This is the best thing ever. But then it turned out that teacher maybe was going to be gone for the whole semester. And then that substitute teacher actually had to do the work. And then you found out they really weren't that great a teacher. That's what we have here, folks.
Really?
And see, I think the problem is, I think Pete Golding's probably a great defensive coordinator. But I think where we got a misread on this in the playoffs, because I think Charlie Weiss Jr., who was running Lane's offense for him, was with him in the playoffs. He's gone now. They brought John David Baker in as the offensive coordinator. And I think that's going to be enough to disrupt this offense. You did lose all the wide receivers and tight ends. Okay. So you're having, while Chambliss and Lacey are back, you're having to build a whole new offense. You've got an offense coordinator and all new pass catchers. I think that's enough to disrupt this offense a little bit. And then when you look at it, no, they're not going to take anybody by surprise this year. And the schedule is brutal. They open against Louisville, and Louisville's a good team. You got LSU, Florida. You got to go on the road to Vandy. You've got at Texas. You got Georgia. You got Oklahoma. They're not going to 7-5, I don't think. but they're not 11-1. I am at 9-3 on the outside looking into the playoffs. They're going to lose. I mean, that's a brutal stretch here against teams that I think are better than them. I just don't see them going in Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's defense just strangles them in Norman.
So John David Baker he was the co-OC for 2022 and 2023 on Ole Miss. So he's not a new face here.
I understand, but
they're familiar,
I understand, but they're familiar. But he wasn't running this offense exactly. I mean, he was,
it
changes.
was Lane's offense, but
yeah, a little bit. I know they say it's 80% the same, whatever. I'm just saying, it is not the exact same. This isn't Lane, this isn't Weiss. And I just wonder if that's enough. And I also think
that's fair.
Sometimes you see these teams go up here and the expectations are really high the next year. Oh, we're just going to run it back. It doesn't work that way. And I think this is the team that's going to come down just a notch enough to maybe knock them out of the playoffs, a notch enough to, instead of having 2 losses, maybe 3 losses, and be on the outside looking in. Somebody's got to take a loss in this conference.
And it's kind of a bold prediction, I will admit. However, I just think quarterback covers a lot on a football team. I think they got the best quarterback in the conference, and this is not quite a bet necessarily on Pete Golding's defensive genius as much as it is they have the best quarterback, they have the best running back, they can make a lot happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my head's at, but I do admit that they have a lot larger downside than any of the other teams I'm picking up in this top tier.
Yeah, probably so. Okay. All right. Well, let's shift our gears to Rocky Top because this is a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago. Last year stumbled a little bit, but was good. You don't call it a rebuilding year, but it was a rebuilding year last year.
Yeah.
And I would argue that this team is not quite where they want to be yet. The recruiting is going well, but I'm not certain they're at the level of Alabama or Georgia at the moment. Yeah. But they're good enough. They've got a 5-star quarterback battle. I mean, they've got 2 good guys battling right now. It appears that I don't know. I have not seen anybody be declared the winner, but it seems to be that Faison Brandon is the leader. Maybe
that's what I've heard from everybody on Twitter. It seems to be trending that way. I don't think they'll announce it probably until week 1 or even later. But my guess is, and what I've heard people say, is that it's Brandon. Which is I think also a good sign because he's very talented. Yeah,
this is the issue. Last year really wasn't that. So a lot comes back on the good part is that really they're switching quarterbacks, but offense really wasn't the problem last year with this team. This team could score points, and I think whoever the quarterback is, I think will have some time to settle in and be okay. It was the defense that really struggled last year, particularly against the pass. So what do you do? What do you do when you have a defensive problem? We go out and hire a new coordinator. Let's see. Who can we hire that's Mr. Fix-It? Oh, yeah, Jim Knowles. Now, Jim was at Penn State. Didn't really get a lot of chance to turn that thing around before it blew up. But we have to remember, where was he before that? He was at Ohio State and did wonders. So this man always turns things around. Now, I will say this. Jim, when he's somewhere, it doesn't always work well year 1. It takes a little while.
At Oklahoma State and Ohio State, it took like 2 years.
Yeah. He runs a little different scheme. It's a 4-2-5 scheme, sometimes with 3 safeties. I don't know if that's what he's going to run here. That would be a little unusual. But if that's what sometimes it takes teams a little while to get that going. So we don't know what to expect in year 1. But if anything, it's got to be better than what they were doing last year. They were just torched last year in the passing defense. So I think if you get a little better improvement, I think Tennessee will probably be more competitive in some of the games versus what was happening last year. Now, how that translates on the field to me, I don't know if I'm going to see a big uptick in record. I mean, they've got Texas, they've got Bama, they've got A&M, they've got LSU, they've got Vanderbilt, they've got Auburn. I feel like this is probably an 8-win team. I think if things break the right way, maybe they get to 9. It's hard to see a 10 wins out of this team.
Yeah.
But I feel like 8-4. With 8-4, if they get to 8-4, I feel like that's probably good. 8-4, maybe 9 wins, good season. And then I feel like next year's the year that this team's really going to be peaking in the SEC, and I would not want a piece of them in 2027.
I'm right with you there. I have them right at 8-4. I could see, that Bama game at home, they could win that, or LSU is at home. There's a chance that, or Tech, one of those like home games where they're a home dog. I could see them flipping, getting up to 9. Yeah. I really don't see 10 wins. I think the schedule's too tough, and they're not quite there yet. The one scenario I could see, major success is if Faison Brandon clicks immediately, because we've seen quarterbacks in that offense. It's kind of easier to pick up than a lot of people can kind of pick it up year one, quarterbacks. And if he's that guy, and if he picks it up year one and their offense is like the number 1, number 2 in the SEC, even if their defense isn't there yet, I could see them really, rocketing up. But I have them, right there at 8-4 is where I have it.
And they're one of those teams that they could catch somebody on a good day and upset them. Some of the teams that we think are a little bit higher ranked,
especially in Neyland. That's a loud stadium.
Yeah. So I think things are looking bright for
bright orange.
The Volunteers. Bright orange, maybe. All right.
Next up, we're going to go to the loveliest little village on the plains. Auburn Tigers. Now, Auburn, they've been in the muck for a little while now. Finally got rid of Hugh Freeze, brought in Alex Golesh from USF. Basically imported all the good players from that USF team. Reminder that beat Florida last year. Quarterback Byron Brown. He's apparently getting rave reviews. He's extremely athletic. He runs the offense well. He knows the system. They kept DJ Durkin on defense, and most of the defensive players, didn't they lose only like one player to the portal or something on defense?
I don't know. Their returning snaps isn't that high.
I mean to the portal, not to draft.
Correct. Well, the portal, yes.
Yeah. So they kept a lot of the players that they could keep in the portal because DJ Durkin was retained. I think their defense will be good again this year. The question is, how quickly can Golesh, install that system? You would think quickly because, but Brown is the same guy, but a lot of guys got to learn different things. And how well does Brown and the guys they brought in, how well do they hold up against an SEC schedule? I think there's, the possibility of them beating somebody in an upset, but I just don't see it year one. I think Golesh is a maniac worker and a recruiter, and I think they'll be pretty good, I think, long term. I just have them kind of going. Now, they haven't been to a bowl game in, 3 years? Right? 3 or 4 years?
Yes.
I have them going to a bowl game this year. I have them at 6-6. But this may hinge on the Baylor game in week 1.
Yeah, I kept going back between 6 and 6, 7 and 5. I think I had them 7-5. I figured they might strike somebody that doesn't expect it, because I like Brown a lot. I think he will keep them in a game that they don't really belong in.
Yeah.
I think there's enough talent that was brought in that I think this team's going to be fighting a lot in games this year. But they're just not as good as some. I mean, I just don't see them going to Georgia or to Ole Miss and winning those games. But there's a lot of other games. They've got 3 tough road games at Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Alabama. Those are tough road games.
At Tennessee too,
and at Tennessee, yeah, 4 tough road games. Could they get one of those? Maybe, but if not, you're already that ceiling looks awfully tough then.
Right.
But I do like the Golesh hire. Bringing Brown with him was probably smart year one because other than that, the quarterback stable was bare, and I think they did lose Deuce Knight. Deuce actually transferred to Ole Miss, but I think Brown fits the system better. And I think things are. If you're an Auburn fan, you've got to be excited about the future. This is just year one in the rebuilding project. I can't see I don't see this team a playoff team or 10-2. No, but I think bowl eligibility is certainly on the table here, and we'll be excited to see.
That is an improvement for Auburn to be sure. Going to a bowl game,
yes,
in year one,
yes,
that should show life. And I do think this will be a better organized behind the scenes program. And so maybe there's some juice left in the squeeze because of the disorganization and the chaos of the Freeze era. So maybe the team's a little better than we all think. But yeah, I kind of have them at 6-6. Although, I mean, don't count them out in some random upset with that wide splits. The old Baylor offense scheme they run.
Yeah, and you remember,
that's the upset scheme. That's the same thing Tennessee runs.
And if you go back to their schedule last year, it wasn't that it was the offense that really let them down in games. I mean, Oklahoma, they were close. Texas A&M, they were close. Georgia, they were close. They were close in those games. They couldn't score. They couldn't move the ball. Yep. Their defense held up fine. And I think the defense does return enough pieces that they're going to be good again, especially with DJ Durkin. I think so. I mean, there's potential here if things break the right way. They could bite somebody. I think this will be a fun year to be an Auburn fan.
Yep. I mean, it's nice to have a new head coach and some life in your program, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you could be a fan of one of the teams we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So
be a Baylor fan.
Ooh.
All right. Next up, go Doors, anchor down. It is Vanderbilt, and they just had the best season in program history. So if you're a Vanderbilt fan and you didn't become a Vanderbilt fan last year, you've got to be just like happy as a clam, right? Like Clark Lee, this is the greatest season in program history. Heisman finalist at Vanderbilt, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. For Vanderbilt, I have, they got Tim Beck is back as the OC. He runs that really fun to watch system. Jared Curtis, I think they say it's competition, but let's be real. It's going to be Jared Curtis. I don't – the thing is I don't see them matching last year, especially without Pavia. I think he was special, and I don't know if Curtis as a freshman, even as a 5-star, can live up to that. I think they're going to be – they do draw the 3 easiest teams in the SEC, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. And I think they can win those 3 and win their 3 out of conference, and I think that's bowl eligibility. But I don't see them going on, the giant killer that they were last year.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a lot to ask for the freshman to be Diego Pavia. The defense was the 3rd worst in the SEC, and I don't see where that's going to improve a whole lot. And so yeah, bowl eligibility 6-6 feels like kind of the best they're going to do this year. They go to Georgia. They play Bama. They play Florida, Tennessee. It's not a great schedule. I don't know what I think they're obviously committed to football now a little bit, but you look at their recruiting, the talent acquisition, they're still recruiting. The 5-year ranks 44th. They're still in the mid-30s in transfer ranking. I mean, it's not enough to compete against these schools like Bama or even Auburn to an extent. There's a lot of schools out there that are just doing better at talent acquisition. So getting Curtis obviously was a big deal. I mean, he was the number 1, quarterback in the country. But you got to recruit more than just one player.
I think if they can recruit in the 30s consistently, that'll boost their program. But you're not really going to compete in the SEC.
Well, that'll get them 6-6, 7-5 at best.
Yeah.
But that's not going to win you SEC titles or get you 10-2 again.
Yeah. So
I mean, that may have been lightning in a bottle, and I hate to say
it really was. But I mean, congrats to them as a program. Like that was an amazing season. Yeah. Any program, Mississippi State or Kentucky, any of these guys would trade 30 years of being bad for one season like that.
Oh yeah.
So don't, if you're Vanderbilt, you hired the right guy. My question is, and this is kind of more of a big picture question. When is Tim Beck gonna get a head coach, a big time head coaching job?
Feels like soon.
Because every year Vanderbilt's offense just seems to be, performing well beyond the talent that it's been given. Yeah. And that was true at New Mexico State, and it's true at Vanderbilt. Now this is his first year without Pavia, so I think this will be a real litmus test. If the Vanderbilt offense, even if their defense is majorly regressed this year, which could be true, Well, they did bring in some decent guys on defense, but they kind of play, kind of average fillers, no stars. If that offense is electric again this year, I would look out for on the coaching boards for somebody to hire Tim Beck. Maybe not an A tier program, but somebody who wants to do more with less, who wants to compete. Bring in Tim Beck and get your offense going. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah. It'll come at some point. So
Yeah. Okay. After Vanderbilt, speaking about a coach doing more with less, running a fun offense, let's go down to Stark Vegas, where Jeff Lebby and Camario Taylor at QB are going to have a fun offense. This is maybe the sicko in me, but I can't wait to watch Mississippi State randomly be in fourth quarter games with two, top 15 SEC teams this year, because it's going to happen. They pushed teams to the brink last year. Camario Taylor is extremely athletic. He's a very good quarterback. And the veer and shoot system that they run there, they can score lots of points. They've got guys at receiver, and they've got Fluff Bothwell at running back. What a name. What a name. Decent secondary. At Mississippi State, you are going to struggle to bring in those guys along the trenches. But the way that they play, the high scoring, if you can defend the secondary and you can score lots of points, I think they definitely have potential to upset some people this year. So with that being said, I do have them 4-8. I can't predict and tell you which one upset may or may not happen. I have them beating South Carolina and Minnesota to start off 3-0, and then I kind of have them losing to basically everybody else, and winning their FCS game during Cupcake Week. But with that all being said, I will be rooting for them in a ton of games, and I hope that they upset somebody, because it could happen.
Yeah, Camario Taylor, he's the highest rated quarterback commit in the school history, and that's a school that produced Dak Prescott. So think about that. He's a lot of fun to watch. I wonder what team he's going to be playing for next year, Indiana or
Come on, don't do that. Don't do that to the Dogs, man.
Anyway,
they just got him.
There's a fun offense, or Auburn, or he's going to be somewhere else next year. So it's not the offense at Mississippi State. It's a talent issue, but it's also the defense. So what do? They went ahead and tried the Brent Pry approach. Let's hire Zach Arnett back, our former coach. That's real interesting. We got two Power 4 programs that hired their former head coach to be defensive coordinators. One did it the season right after he got fired.
And then you got Texas also, who's
Muschamp, who was. So Zach Arnett. This defense was dreadful. Not just passing, total scoring.
Oh yeah,
total rushing, and that's why teams can. I don't care what Mississippi State scores. Teams are going to score more points, and that's the problem. I think I've got them going 3-9. I just don't think you're not going to stop teams like Oklahoma and Texas and LSU and Bama from scoring points. I don't know how much longer this Jeff Lebby experiment is going to happen, and I don't really blame him. I think he's probably a pretty decent coach. I just don't know how. If you can't recruit talent there on defense or get the right people, I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah. So, do you think he's the next Georgia offensive coordinator when Bobo moves on? Or
Bobo ain't moving on. Bobo's Kirby's good friend. Bobo's not moving on.
Or, what big SEC team is when Charlie Weiss Jr. leaves for a Big 12 job? He's going to be
he's going to go to Oklahoma. Is what he's going to do.
Yeah, or whatever. Oklahoma. Yeah, somebody.
Yeah.
Lebby to Oklahoma. Yeah, good point.
That would be where he'd go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but the good thing is,
so you don't think they can beat South Carolina?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to. That's a toss up.
Yeah. So.
But
anyway.
It could be worse. It could be Arkansas.
Yeah. Speaking of worse, boy.
There's
Ryan
not a lot to
Silverfield.
like here.
There is not. Ryan Silverfield.
They did name KJ Jefferson today, right? Is it
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Was it KJ? No, I was saying
KJ Jackson, I
KJ
think.
Jackson. Why do I say Jefferson? I'm thinking so. KJ Jackson was named the starter today.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, this is a team that was just terrible defensively. Couldn't stop anybody. I don't know what they're going to be this year. Under Petrino's offense last year scored a lot of points. I don't know what to expect this year with the new head coach. I really don't. This is complete rebuilding. They're bringing a lot of people. I think it's just going to be. I really don't know. I have no idea what to expect of this team, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think they'll probably have a good running game. Would be my guess. I think, they got.
I mean, your old buddy Ron Roberts is running the base 3-4.
This is true.
I mean, he's been at all our schools: Florida, Auburn, and Baylor. I mean,
yeah. I'm very down on Arkansas this year. I don't think Silverfield is actually that great of a head coach. I think he did less with more at Memphis compared to the competition, and I don't think he's going into a good situation in Arkansas. I have them going 2-10. I don't think they win a single SEC game, and they definitely lose on the road at Utah. Arkansas. Now it seems like they actually have stepped up the spending in the more recent recruiting class. They decided, hey, maybe we actually need to try at football a little bit. We can't just be all basketball. So I think that's good for them that they're investing in that, but that may take a couple of years to matriculate, and by then Silverfield may be gone. I think Arkansas is kind of in that Mississippi State range where you take the job for the check that you're going to get as the head coach, you lose your 3 seasons, and then you go somewhere else. So,
yeah, we've had this discussion on other podcasts before. I mean, all 16 teams in the SEC cannot be 10-2.
No, they cannot.
The math does not work out, and I don't care how rabid these fan bases are. And so some of them, I mean, I don't. Somebody's going to take the losses.
So there's this thing when you increase the size of the conference, you get more better teams at the top. True. But you also get more worse teams at the bottom that have to lose to those teams at the top. And so you may look at the top of the SEC and be like, wow, they're so loaded. And then you look at the bottom and like, well, somebody's got to take the losses. And
you added Texas and Oklahoma, and you took on 2 teams that traditionally Oklahoma has been good for 80 years.
Oklahoma has been the most consistent college football program outside of Nebraska. I mean, outside of Ohio State.
Like they've had like 2 bad seasons.
Always elite.
Yes. And Texas,
they have 9 non-fake national championships, or 7 or whatever.
And Texas has been. I mean, we can say we want about Texas, but it is
they've always had the potential to be there.
Yeah, they're just an unusual program in one of the largest states, and has been really graded. There's a myth and legacy about Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, that was going to take 2 spots from somebody, whether it was Kentucky, whether it was Arkansas, whether it was Mississippi State. If those teams were ever any good, they were going to go down.
Yeah.
It wasn't taking Bama or Georgia's spot.
Nope.
So and there's a few schools that may have got hurt that were kind of in the middle that had to play. Did
it take Auburn and Florida spots?
Well, those teams were playing catch up in the NIL. I mean, some of those schools are playing catch up and figuring it out. Ole Miss has risen. Ole Miss has figured it out, the NIL game.
They have.
The portal. So I just think that's why I'm convinced the SEC is going to add 2 more schools, and I'm convinced 100% they're going to add UNC and UVA because they're basketball programs, and they're just going to add them for the losses in football.
Interesting.
Add to the footprint, add them for the baseball, basketball, and other programs, and then there's schools that'll be like, okay, if we lose football, it's not the end of the world, but you add more losses at the bottom.
Don't think that Kentucky equivalents, basically.
Yeah, they're more Kentuckies, but they're not gonna have real problems with losing a few games in football because those schools care more about basketball and baseball and Olympic sports.
Well, Virginia is starting to decide, hey, maybe we should care about football.
Yeah, but they'll be like Mississippi State or Arkansas. I'm telling you, you don't think that they're going to add 2 more teams, then all of a sudden that adds a few more victories.
You want to hear my theory?
I'm a big conspiracy theorist.
I think the SEC and the Big Ten are both going to add 8 more teams each, and then just call it.
Well, I don't know if that'll happen.
Maybe not like 5 to 8 more teams each, and just be like, all right, boys, we're making our AFC, NFC. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, I don't know about. Maybe.
Because I think the SEC will add Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech.
I don't think the SEC wants to add Miami and Florida State.
And then they'll add a couple other teams. They'll add, Oklahoma State, some of these other guys. Baylor. No. Texas Tech. Some of the and then they'll add those guys, and then the Big Ten will add Utah and BYU, and then there'll just be a duopoly. Everything will converge to the 2, and then you'll just that'll be college football.
We'll see. That's a whole nother podcast. All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
we are done with the SEC. We are done with our previews. Now, what's it? Wednesday night, we will have our prediction show for the season.
Yes, sir.
We're going to tell you who's going to win the national title.
National title predictions, playoff predictions. Can we do a top 10 or a top 15 ranking?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go 15. I'm going to give you
10.
my 12. I'm going to give you my 12 playoff teams.
12 playoff teams. Okay.
And 2 years ago, I gave you the national championship. Last year, I missed off a little bit, but
yeah,
2 years ago, I was spot on. So I'm 1 for 2. We're going to go 2 for 3 this year.
I don't think anybody predicted Indiana last year, so
No, I felt
not crazy about that.
No, so
but
anyway.
All
right. Well,
thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe on all the platforms, and make sure to tune in live to the next episode where we do our predictions and we do our. We'll also give our bets based on the win totals. So, and then week 0, and then we're off.
And we're here.
All right. Good night.